Hello, my favorite algebra students. Welcome back. We are on lesson 23. Lesson 23. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. I'm enjoying working with each and every one of you. Today we're going to be talking about the additive property of equality. Additive property of equality. So if you haven't already, make sure you take notes. Turn to your notes section in your binder. Additive property of equality. What that means is we are, did I spell that right? Additive? I did, okay. We are allowed to add anything to an equation as long as we do it to both sides. Guys, we're allowed to add whatever we want to an equation. We just have to do it to both sides, okay? So make sure you're doing that to both sides. So what we're gonna be talking about today are equations. Yay, I love equations. The big thing with this is, all right, so what I want you to do is we're gonna take some notes, like I mentioned. Example number one. Example number one. So guys, the way that I am doing this is how I want your equations to look, okay? This is how I want your homework and your notes to look. So when you see a problem in your book, for example, we are going to be doing example number one, x minus 3 equals 12. X minus 3 equals 12. You copy down, make sure you copy down the equation first. Then, now, like I said, we're allowed to add anything to both, as long as we do it to both sides. And when I say both sides, I mean both sides of that equal sign. So guys, the opposite of -3, and remember that's a negative, is +3. So why am I choosing to add +3? Because -3 and +3, bam, those go away and we get our x by itself. The whole idea on solving equations is get that x by itself. But what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So if I do that, I get x equals 12 and 3 is 15. 12 and 3 is 15. So even if you can do this in your head, write it down, show your work, because I want to make sure that you are setting yourself up for success in the future, making sure that you are organized and neat and tidy and showing the necessary steps that you will need to. Okay, so x plus 1/4 equals -3/8. You see how that negative is written in the middle? That's how it's written in the book. Bump that bad boy up to either the top or the bottom, generally the top, because you want to make sure that you're attaching it to a number so it doesn't get lost, okay? Well, I can tell you already we're going to need a common denominator here. So this is going to be, our common denominator is going to be 8. So we're going to do this. X plus 2/8 equals -3/8. All right, we're allowed to add anything to either side. So, and along those same lines, like we've talked about, subtracting isn't actually subtracting, it's adding the opposite, right? We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna add the opposite here, which is -2/8, because a +2/8 and a -2/8, bam, those cancel out. -2/8 over here. Normally I stack them, but in this case, I'm not going to. X is all by itself now, so X equals, now we don't subtract, we add the opposite. Now, on the bottom we have 8, and on the top we have -3 and -2, which is -5. So your answer should be -5/x. All right, so let's talk about example 3. K plus 2⅓ equals 2/9. 2/9. All right, so if we minus 2 1/3 from both sides, K will equal, now I'm going to go ahead and set this all up. It's 0 and 2/9 minus 2 1/3, right? 2 1/3. There's a couple ways of doing this. So we know that we're going to be, the signs are different, so we're going to be subtracting, and the larger sign is the negative. So we know our answer is going to be negative. But we need a couple of things here. We need a common denominator, first of all. So to multiply that by 3, and what I do on the bottom, I have to do on the top, right? So I'm going to rewrite all these guys. Now I have 0 and 2/9. That 0 is just a placeholder, so I have everything nice and lined up, right? Minus 2 and 3/9. Now back to what I was saying, the signs are different, so we're going to be subtracting, right? So we're gonna be subtracting. However, we need to, and the answer is going to be a negative number, right? So once we've decided that, like for example, let's say I have this 4 plus -7. Okay, the larger number is the negative sign, and we're subtracting 7 and 4. So as long as I know that my answer is negative, I can move these in order, 7 minus 4. Same thing with this fraction here. So I'm going to reorganize these guys, and I'm going to do it as 2 and 3/9 minus 0 and 2/9. Because when I do that, I get 2, and then this is 3 minus 2 is 1, 2 and 1/9. But you need to remember it's a negative 2 and 1/9. Negative 2 and 1/9. Different way of doing this. So k equals negative 2 and 1/9. Different way of doing it. Let's talk about this. Back up here. Back up here. These guys canceled out, right? So what I have is k equals 2, get that out of the way, 2/9 minus 2 and 1/3. Let's turn that into an improper fraction. 3 times 2 is 6, plus that is 7. So 2/9 minus 7/3. This might be easier for you guys. It's totally fine. But we need a common denominator. So I'm going to multiply this by 3, multiply this by 3. So now I have k equals 2/9 minus 21/9, which means we don't subtract, we add the opposite. Okay, so k equals negative 19/9. How many times does 9 go into 19? 2 times. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 1 more is 19, and don't forget our negative. So this is the improper fraction, this is the mixed number. Both methods are totally fine on doing that. All right, that was 3, let's do, all right, go ahead and do the practice problems on page 101. Pause the video, do the practice problems, come on back, and let's see if you got them right. X plus 5 equals 17. We are going to add the opposite, -5, because when we do that, these guys cancel out, and I have x all by itself. 17 minus 5 is 12. Okay? B, and you need to be showing your work like I'm showing mine here, okay? K minus 27 equals -38. The opposite of -27 is +27. These guys cancel out. K equals, the negative sign is larger, right? And the difference between those two is 11. So -11. All right, so C. And you guys, you're in algebra now, so there's many different methods of doing things. So you may see that I do something some way and somebody else does, you know, maybe you have a teacher or tutor that's taught you else. That's totally fine, as long as you're getting the right answer and you know what you're doing. So x minus 1/2 equals 3/8. Straight off the bat, we're gonna need a common denominator, right? So multiply this by 4, multiply this by 4. Now we could have added 1/2 to both sides and then found a common denominator. That's fine too. But for right now, we're gonna just do it this way. It's 4/8 equals 3/8. All right, so I'm allowed to add whatever I want. So I'm gonna add 4/8 because that will cancel these guys out. But what I do to one side, I've got to do to the other. So these guys canceled out and I get that x all by itself, which is awesome. And I get 7/8. 7/8. D. D is our last one. We get D plus 4 1/7 equals 3 1/6. When there's smaller numbers like this, I say let's just turn them all into improper fractions. D plus 7 times 4 is 28, plus that is 29/7 equals 6 times 3 is 18, plus that is 19/6. Oh man, now we have to do we have to find a common denominator, right? So most of the time, your common denominator is just multiplying them together, and that's going to be the case here. So we multiply this by 6, this by 6, this by 7, this by 7. I may have made a mistake on doing turning them all into improper fractions because I'm going to have some big numbers here, right? So sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. Doesn't matter how you do it. Okay, 29 times 6 equals 174/42 equals 19 times 7 equals 133 over 42. All right, now we have a common denominator. We want to move this chunk over to the other side, so we're going to subtract 174 over 42 minus 174 over 42. These guys cancel out, and I have D equals, and we don't subtract, we add the opposite. We know the denominator is going to be 42. Now, which team is larger? Our negative team, and by how many? Well, 174, the difference between 174 and 133 is 41. So negative 41 42ths. 40 seconds, I don't know, negative 41 over 42. All right, guys, if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, great work, and I will see you next time or see you in class. Thanks, guys.